Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Darvin Ham says the Lakers have championship level depth. What does that mean, and is he right? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everyone for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts, always free, never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube, Andy's where you can go to hang out with over 20,000 subscribers to the channel. Love the support that we are getting there. I got a couple comments I'm going to try to weave into today's show. Some stuff we just, the conversations this week. The good thing about the offseason, Andy, is like you can kind of dive into a topic and stay there a little while if you want, because there's no other real pressing news to get to. So whether it's Austin Reaves or Rob Pelinka or kind of remembering the summer of Kobe back in 2007, it's gonna be kind of fun to kind of like chew on topics for a week.
Yeah. Plus it's August. We're hungry.
Yeah. You gotta eat slowly.
Yeah, you save through your food in August. During the season, you're speeding through some of this.
My favorite comment from the Kobe show that we did, where we're kind of talking, we're kind of remembering that summer, comparing it to what's happening right now with Philly and Harden, came from this, just to show Andy that good can come out of everything. There's opportunity in everything. Michael Garrity 3989. The Kobe drama was great for me. The uncertainty produced an opening in a pool of 4 guys sharing great season tickets. I bought in and enjoyed the ride.
Well,
there's
kudos to
Michael Garrity, who recognizes opportunity when it's there.
And kudos, by the way, to Michael Garrity for taking that chance, because that season ended up fantastic.
Yes, it did.
Good on him.
Season tickets, not easy to get at that point. So
no, they are not.
Congratulations on that. So I want to get to the season in-season tourney schedule came out. And I kind of want to revisit that a little bit now that we've all had a little time to live with that. But one other thing that was this week, you saw Darvin Ham had some really interesting comments framed in an interesting way about the Lakers and the roster and its championship caliberness that I know you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting when Darvin, he was at a Basketball Without Borders event, and I believe in South Africa, but I don't remember off the top of my head the location. But he talked about how he felt like this team was really close to championship caliber. And obviously you mentioned everything beginning with LeBron and AD, and then being able to bring back Rui and Reaves and D'Lo. But then he also talked about Gabe Vincent, Taurean Prince, Cam Reddish, Jackson Hayes. He didn't mention Max Christie, but I think Max Christie is part of this equation. From everything
I would agree
I've seen or heard, they are earmarking rotation time for him. The expectation is that he's going to play. And Darvin talked a lot about the championship depth of this team and how this feels like a team with just enough roster depth to be competing at a championship contending level. And I thought it was interesting, just because somebody like Darvin Ham, who carved out a career based on his ability to be part of depth, there was a bit of, it felt like game recognizes game. But also I just thought it was interesting because for this particular team, when you're looking to try to ease the burden off LeBron, looking to try to get AD through a season, you need a lot of different options on a team and guys who can be innings eaters. I think they're looking for high responsibility on Reaves and D'Lo and Rui, but also capable options in Gabe Vincent and Taurean Prince. And just down the line, it helps to have a lot of different people you can turn to.
It's funny too, it's one of, I think, the best expressions that has made its way into basketball is the concept of the innings eater. And we've actually, more than a lot of people I think have talked about, look, man, the regular season matters. Like, you need to get guys who can get you through 82 games. And if you can't rely on them as much as you would like in the playoffs. That is something you got to consider, but it's not the whole ball of wax. Like the regular season matters, and it matters a great deal. I think, first of all, I think he's right. I think the Lakers have, when you start with LeBron and AD and you move into what Austin Reaves looks like he's becoming, and then you have, D'Angelo Russell as perhaps your fourth best guy, he's just
Fifth
best guy, depending on how you think these things shake out. You're starting to put together a pretty good roster. And, so I think that is obviously noteworthy. The other thing that I think, though, is really important, and it's particularly important in relation to the Lakers, is that the words that he's using, the language that he's using is about depth. It's about top to bottom stuff. It's about having the pieces in the right spot. It's all of that stuff. Whereas 2 seasons ago, it was all about, look how much star power we have. Both of these things, like you can't be a championship caliber roster without having enough talent. Like talent and, championship caliber talent and championship caliber depth, I think actually have a decent amount of overlap. But I do think the words that they use to discuss these things, especially when you're the Lakers, I think those are important.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that classic line in The Wire when Lester Freeman's talking about solving cases. He says all the pieces matter. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about a roster, all the pieces really do matter. I mean, even the guys lower down, the totem pole, you may need them at some point. Or just the idea that you have guys who provide quality practices to the degree that NBA teams even practice anymore, or just a week and a half if some guy's dealing with an ankle sprain. You don't lose all of those games, and all of a sudden there becomes that additional pressure down the line to have to win those sort of games. We saw the Lakers go through a mad scramble last season to get themselves into the play-in mix. And, that was extreme, the situation that they went through. And, they spent 3/4 of the season below 500. You don't expect most teams like that to have an ability to get to the play-in, much less the playoffs. The Western Conference just happened to break for them, very fortunately. But part of the reason they were in that position is the pieces didn't fit. Mm-hmm. And you had to overcompensate for the fact that those pieces didn't fit. So what do you do with that? For the time being, the pieces do fit. Again, that matters.
So there's another part of this, though, that I think, the language that Darvin is using is also reflective of the direction that the league is going. And so that is a place that I want to take this conversation next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel, and football season is about to kick off. FanDuel is giving you a chance to win all season long, because right now when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, preferably one that you think actually will, and you get bonus bets for every victory. And you can use those bonus bets on spreads, on player props, over-unders, whole bunch of different options. The Chiefs right now, last I looked, 6-1 odds to repeat as champs. They're a team that feels like they're going to win a lot of games. Chargers, last I looked, 21-1 to win the Super Bowl. I think that's a sneaky good odds for anybody, particularly if you're an LA, an Angelino following the NFL. Either way, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to start earning those bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon.
So speaking of depth, Andy, we love to get the mail from folks, and obviously people are really interested in this whole Christian Wood thing, and where the 14th roster spot is going to go, and so on and so on. We did get an interesting question, I thought, from Next Gen Radio 4477 on the
really quick. By the way, this was a comment left for us on the YouTube page, the comment section. You can also hit us up, KamenetskyBrothers@gmail.com if you're looking to email us questions, we check that as well.
Oh, Cam Brothers on Twitter, excuse me, on X. So yeah, Next Gen Radio left us this question on the YouTube page. There's so much talk about the Lakers chasing Christian Wood. What about JaMychal Green? I always loved his stretch 5 game on the Clippers and wondered why he didn't get enough minutes on Denver. If he's still available, narrator, he is. I'd give him a serious look. Too many red flags with Christian Wood from a character standpoint. Andy, what say you about JaMychal Green with the 14th roster spot, a name that we have not really kicked around?
My concern with JaMychal Green is that just age is starting to catch up with him a little bit. He's not super old. He's only, I think, turning 33, or he just turned 33. So he's not old,
but he ain't super young.
He isn't super young, and he's somebody that, wasn't necessarily working off high athleticism to begin with. He's I think, to put it generously, would be kind of a tweener as a small ball center, something like that. He is a good outside shooter, and that is something that could be helpful. He is somebody that could play with Anthony Davis. I think he should be considered an option. I think Christian Wood, to whatever degree you're willing to look past the red flags, he's more purely talented than JaMychal Green, and I would prefer Bismack Biyombo, just because I feel like his best quality, that rim protection, is better than any one single quality that JaMychal Green would bring to the table, even if JaMychal Green can do more things, at least theoretically, than Biyombo. I also start feeling like if you're going to get into JaMychal Green, I wonder if you're better off just bringing back Wenyen Gabriel, who gives you just about everything other than the outside shooting, but there's more of a familiarity, and I think probably he's going to be fine with whatever you ask him to do.
And the other difference, and you alluded to it a little bit with JaMychal, the other difference with Wenyen is you have some experience with him as a small ball center, where JaMychal Green, I actually went back and looked it up because I know he's played some small ball center as the game has sort of evolved, but not much. The vast majority of his career has been spent at power forward. And if you go back earlier, there's a little bit of center in there, and then there's actually more small forward. Green is listed at 6'8". I've seen 6'9", but at least on Basketball Reference is listed at 6'8". The biggest problem I have with him as a signing is he plays the wrong position. The Lakers actually at this point have a lot of guys who can play power forward. They have 2 who can play center. They need a third guy who is a center. Christian Wood, I've seen, is listed on Basketball Reference again at 6'10". I've seen other places 6'9", but the most of his minutes come as a center. Like, that's the position he plays.
Look, JaMychal Green's not a terrible signing if that's eventually the direction that they go. And I've seen a lot of people ask us, like, what's the wait? Why is this taking so long? From Christian Wood's perspective, he is waiting to see if he can get more than a minimum or the best possible setting for him if he is going to play for a minimum. There's also a lot of people thinking that until things get settled with Damian Lillard, James Harden, or both of them, there are teams in limbo right now because they're thinking they might have roster spots opening up. They might need to pick up other guys. There might be a lack of movement for a while until at least one of those guys moves.
Yeah, I would agree. And so some of this stuff will shake loose, next month as things get closer to training camp. Guys just need to be on rosters. But yeah, I mean, if you ask me who would you rather have, JaMychal Green or Cam Reddish, I'd think about it, in terms of, the roles that these guys would have on the roster and the ability to take somebody like Green and plug them in with some limitations, but exactly what you're getting for the 3 weeks out of the year that you think you might need to rely on, or the 2 playoff games or 3 playoff games. So you need to stick him in there for whatever, what you're going to get out of him.
Yeah.
And he is a low ceiling, higher floor 14th, 13th, 12th, 11th guy. Whereas Cam Reddish has more upside, like that could hit, but there's a much larger chance that Reddish is useless compared to Green. But they signed Reddish and they didn't sign Green. And now, given what they have on the roster, the next player they sign needs to be a center.
Yeah.
Unless they just can't find one.
Right. Rob Pelinka has said they're looking for a big
Yes.
man. I would be stunned if this 14th spot is used on anybody shorter than 6'9". It would be stunning.
And if Wood signs somewhere else and Biyombo signs somewhere else, and the option is center from the G League that I've never heard of, or JaMychal Green, go get the center I've never heard of, because A, they have a good track record with those guys, and B, they need another tall human. So anyway, but it's a great question, and he's an interesting name, and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It's just not.
I've always liked JaMychal Green.
If they use 15 spots, hey, go get us some JaMychal Green. He is coming from the Denver Nuggets, and he would be a depth guy. He's what Darvin Ham is talking about. Like, the league has shifted from star, how many do you have at the top of your roster, to, I think, and it's a copycat league. The Nuggets, the Warriors, they've shown that what you have 1 through 10, how those pieces fit together, the quality of your 4 through 6 compared to somebody else's, like, real depth matters. And I think it's just getting that kind of attention, and it's reflected in the language that Darvin is using.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else you want to talk about with the depth versus talent thing?
I feel like the Lakers are in a really good place. I think they got at worst they held serve this offseason. I think in actuality they got a little bit better during this offseason. And either way, like I said before, the pieces fit, and that's really important.
All right. So, okay, cool. I just double checking, making sure I don't want to shortchange you. But the other little piece of housekeeping news, the NBA released its group play schedule for the in-season tournament. And the first thing that stuck out to me, Andy, was a stark reminder as to how early in the season all of this stuff happens. Like, it's really early in the year. The Lakers games, this is league wide. It's going to be, I think it's Tuesdays and Fridays. The Lakers start their pool play on November 10th. They go the 10th, the 14th, the 17th, and the 21st. So for 11 days, that's when group play happens for the in-season tournament. Somehow, like, sort of intellectually, it did not sink into me that this is like the third week of the season, the second week of the season.
You know what, Matt? You are slow on the uptake, because
I know
it took you like 2 months and Nick Angstadt to realize that Rui and D'Lo's salary matches Kyrie Irving, despite the fact that A, you can do math, and B, it was talked about anyway. Like,
no, I think I can explain away with trauma. Basically, I closed off a part of my brain that would allow me to travel down the avenue to explore not just, Andy, the idea of the Kyrie Irving trade, but the series of shows that we would be doing leading up to December 15th about whether or not the Lakers are going to trade for Kyrie. And I don't want to do those shows. So I think emotionally, I just shut off a piece of my brain to avoid the trauma and the pain and the hurt. So I'm giving myself a pass for that one. I might have heard that podcast or other people talking about it and simply have like disassociated, or whatever the right word is. This one, I just probably wasn't paying attention. The thing I'm still very curious about is how seriously you think the Lakers are going to take this. Because I think every team's going to look at it differently. So that's what I want to get into next. Quick reminder that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. I've seen different proposals for like how this tournament could be made better, like before we've even tried it. One of them, like whoever wins gets an automatic spot in the playoffs, whether that's the play-in or the actual playoffs or something like that. I guess you could work that out later. That opens up all kinds of interesting possibilities, I suppose. But for how things are this year, where it's essentially for pride and a little bit of money, how much emphasis do you think the Lakers are going to put on this, both the team and, as a team and as individuals, beyond, they're playing Phoenix in the first game, Memphis in the second game, Portland in the third game, Utah in the fourth. 3, if you consider Utah to be a playoff contender this year, and I do, one of them 10 spots. 3 of those 4 games are against Western Conference playoff opponents, so they will have meaning. But it's also November. How intensely do you think the Lakers will take this whole, these are important games and they're part of the midseason tournament?
I think they're going to play hard in these games. The reason they're playing hard, I don't know. And in certain respects, it doesn't matter. I can't speak to how much LeBron in his 21st season is going to want to win the in-season tournament. But I can tell you this much.
I think I can, actually.
Well, but this is the thing. It doesn't matter, because this is one thing I'm 100% sure about. He ain't going to be load managing during this tournament. He ain't going to be resting when he's healthy during this tournament, because the league in the inaugural one, like, LeBron better have a really good doctor's note if he's going to be sitting out of this game, because Adam Silver and the gang, they're going to tell him, get your ass out there. If you want to load manage, do this after the tournament. Look, these are regular
to use the Dennis Schroeder parlance, he's going to have to go to the LeBron James of doctor's notes.
Exactly. I mean, the truth is, too, these are games that count towards their regular season record. And we talked about before, the Lakers did a mad dash to get into the play-in that took a lot out of them. I don't think they want to go through that again. And I think they've seen, even if you're a team that is thinking championship or bust in terms of your goals, the regular season plays a role in meeting those goals. So whether you're talking about because they want to be known as the first team to ever win the midseason tournament, or because they care about the regular season record, or because the league's going to be telling them, no, seriously, don't embarrass us, be out there, I think these are going to feel like regular season games.
Yeah, like I said, different.
I don't really care why they're playing hard, to be honest.
Right. I mean, I'm saying, I guess what I'm wondering is, like, will there be like a little something extra? Like, I don't think for the Lakers there really will be, but they're also,
I'm not sure there's going to be for any team.
Some teams maybe, younger players who maybe this is sort of like their way to. It's not their playoffs, but maybe it's a way. If you got a bunch of players who are making $2 million a year, $1 million, like whatever it might be, maybe they're more interested in it, but whatever, we'll find out.
Could be some guys on the Rockets who may want to win, or like the Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what I'm warming up to this idea. I've long thought that, look, this thing is clearly not for me. It is for my kids. Like, if my kids were basketball fans, like, it's the idea is for them, 13's 11, my other one's 4, your daughter is 12. So, like, if you kind of grow up with this thing, it's not going to seem stupid and gimmicky and unnecessary. Like, it'll just be a thing that the NBA does. And maybe in 5 years, the whole thing disappears, but maybe it doesn't. And, I was worried when they kind of had the idea that it was going to be this thing where they like pause the regular season to play like some weird tournament. That would have been a terrible idea. But like, this is kind of ultimately no harm, no foul, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't feel particularly disruptive. And I think that's what really matters. Whether it's going to be a success, like you said, we really won't know till 5 to 10 years down the road. I think minimum, like, has this thing really worked in terms of creating something that becomes really part of NBA culture? The most important thing is that it doesn't get in the way. Right. Because, like, the play-in tournament, which I like the idea of it from the beginning, but some people have been skeptical about it. The reality is, it affects who gets into the playoffs to some degree, or how it's determined. But it ultimately doesn't really change much in terms of how you go about determining a champion of the league. So in that sense, it doesn't really change a whole lot. It just, I think, successfully has made the regular season more interesting with more stakes and more of an opportunity to get yourself into the playoffs, which it turns out most teams would like to do it if they can. You know, most teams, if they can get themselves in there, will forego that or will do that as opposed to trying to increase their odds of a lottery pick from like 3% to 7%. They'd rather just try to get into the playoffs.
Would you put a playoff berth in? Like, does that suggestion make
Hell
it more
no.
interesting? Yeah.
No, I mean, the whole point of the play-in tournament was to create more interest for the regular season. It totally defeats the purpose if one team is already in by mid-November. It totally defeats the purpose.
It's funny too. Like I've seen a couple of people suggest, and then that you'll get some random the Pistons win because they're the only team taking it seriously. But it actually somebody pointed out on Twitter, it would be a tremendous boon for the older teams in the league to know that they were in. Like the Warriors, the Lakers.
Wants, though. The league
correct. No, it's a terrible idea for that reason that you point out. The last thing I want to note before we go. We had a conversation a few weeks ago when I believe it was Kylian Mbappe, the soccer player, got a gigantic offer to go play in Saudi Arabia in the league that they're putting up. And I think he passed. Ronaldo said yes. Mbappe said no. But this week, Neymar said yes. It's a $98 million transfer, and he's going to make a gajillion dollars playing in the Saudi league and all this stuff. The numbers for these contracts. Neymar's 31 years old. He's signing with a club called Al Hilal, worth about $120 million a year. It looks like nice work if you can get it. I know we don't even have to get that deep into it. I don't think it's going to come from a Saudi Arabian basketball league, but there was that Adam Silver was talking about, sort of the influence of Saudi money and like how much of of clubs, these funds will be allowed to own and all these other things. The day, I am still convinced the day is coming, and whether it's a European league or something like that, where somebody's going to make offers to players like Harden, and down the line, somebody like Harden is easy pickings right now, but starting with those guys, a little bit beyond their prime, a little bit awkward, Westbrook, whatever it might be, but then moving down into the legit players on the NBA scene. And it is going to happen where these guys are going to start getting these kinds of offers. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. I am 100% convinced it's coming.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure at some point, I don't have as fear is the wrong word for it, but for lack of a better way of putting it, I don't have that much of a fear of some type of, I don't know, rapid departure from of star players out of the NBA, like, some type of exodus. I'm not particularly concerned about it. And I think a lot of players would need somebody else to go first. And you're basically going to have a bunch of players, if they get offers, all standing around the same pool. Like, you want to jump in? No, you jump in. No, you jump in. I don't know if anyone's going to want to be first necessarily.
And then if like somebody like Harden is first, and it's not going to be James Harden literally, because it'll be
I think it could be James Harden literally.
But I'm like, well, James Harden, like if he wants, like it's probably like, I don't know what the rules are, but like a Chinese league. That's the place where he's most popular right now. He's in China. It would be something like that.
Well, he
but
strikes me as a prime guy to do this.
I just don't I don't think the market comes together that quickly for something like this, but whoever is James Harden in 8 years, I think this could be a real thing, especially since, the European leagues, depending on, but it is a fascinating development in soccer, politics aside for Saudi Arabia. And I don't mean to minimize that, but I'm just talking purely about money to go play in places that are clearly inferior to where you could play, because $120 million a year.
Inferior, by the way, we're talking about the quality of play. We're talking about
Correct.
The quality of players there in competition.
Right. The leagues aren't as good.
Right. I just wanted to clarify that as opposed to the country itself. I just wanted to make sure.
Right. That's what I mean. Like the Saudi soccer league, professional soccer league, they're buying a lot of good players. There's no question. But it's not, La Liga. It's not, the Bundesliga. It's not Premier League. Those are all soccer leagues.
Good to know.
Yeah. Just as an FYI.
No idea what you're talking about.
Yep. No, that's why I said those things. Anyway, so it's something I noticed, and it is an interesting thing that is happening in sports that I do think is coming to basketball. Locked On Lakers on YouTube, so we can go to hang out and leave us questions, leave comments. This is the Locked On Lakers YouTube page. You can also visit us on Twitter at CamBrothers and as Andy Kamenetsky, gmail.com is where you can leave us emails and things like that. Yeah, we'll see everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see everybody next week.